"Ryan, you need to leave. Now." My younger brother's words cut through the party like a knife. The elegant hall fell silent, 50 guests turning to stare at us. I stood there in my best suit, holding the gift I had chosen so carefully for Tyler's 21st birthday. "Sorry, what?" I replied, thinking I had misheard him. "You heard me perfectly well," Tyler continued, his voice laced with a coldness I had never seen before. "I don't want my friends to see this." He gestured vaguely in my direction, as if I were something repulsive. "My name is Ryan, I'm 28 years old, and I just found out that my own brother is ashamed of me for being just an air conditioning technician." The humiliation burned my face as I realized everyone was watching our argument. Tyler's wealthy college friends, wearing designer clothes that cost more than my monthly salary, stared at me with a mixture of curiosity and barely concealed contempt. "Tyler, I don't understand," I muttered, still processing what was happening. "I'm your brother." "Exactly the problem," he replied, crossing his arms. "You show up here with your stories about fixing air conditioners, talking about your business clients like you're some kind of successful entrepreneur. It's embarrassing." Sebastian Huntington III, Tyler's best friend and heir to a banking fortune, chuckled softly. "Man, I totally get it. Family can be complicated," he commented, as if I weren't there. What Tyler didn't know was that I had spent half my paycheck that month to buy the Omega watch wrapped in the box in my hands. The same watch he had secretly admired in the jewelry store window when we passed by 3 weeks ago. What he also didn't know was that I was paying for his entire education at Princeton University. $57,000 a year coming straight out of my account, without him ever asking where the money came from. "Do you know what I do to pay for your education?" I asked quietly, trying to keep the discussion private. "That's beside the point," Tyler replied impatiently. "The point is, you don't fit in here. Look around you, Ryan. These people have standards. They have expectations." Madison Pierce, a young blonde in a dress that probably cost more than my car, leaned over to whisper something in her friend's ear. They both laughed, shooting me disdainful looks. "My God, Tyler," one of the girls said loud enough for me to hear. "You never mentioned that your brother works in manual services." The word services came out of her mouth like it was something dirty. Tyler blushed, clearly embarrassed. "That's why you need to go," he insisted. "I can't have you here talking about pipes and ventilation systems to people whose parents are CEOs and bank presidents." I stood there for a moment, absorbing the magnitude of the betrayal. This was the same brother I had raised after our parents died when he was only 15. The same boy who cried in my arms when he found out he couldn't afford his dream college. The same brother I worked 60 hours a week for, taking emergency calls on weekends, building my company from the ground up, all to ensure he had the opportunities our parents would have wanted for him. "I get it," I said finally, my voice surprisingly calm. "You're ashamed of me." "It's not shame," Tyler protested, but his eyes couldn't meet mine. "It's just that, you don't understand how these things work. Image is everything in this social circle." I placed the gift carefully on the nearest table and headed for the door. Each step I took was accompanied by the whispers and giggles of the guests. But as I walked toward the exit, something changed inside me. The initial pain of humiliation was being replaced by crystal clear clarity. Tyler thought he knew me. He thought I was just his older brother who fixed air conditioners, and would always be there to support him financially, no matter how he treated me. What he didn't know was that I had built a company that was making over $2 million a year. That I had contracts with some of the largest shopping malls in the city. That my signature was on the check that paid not only for his education, but also for his luxury apartment, his imported car, and his privileged lifestyle. I stopped at the door and turned around one last time. Tyler was laughing with his friends, clearly relieved to be rid of the embarrassment I represented. "Enjoy your party, Tyler," I said loud enough for everyone to hear. "I'm sure it will be memorable." As I walked away, I was already mentally calculating exactly how much I had spent on Tyler over the past 3 years. More importantly, I was planning how he would react when he found out that his embarrassing brother had the power to change his life completely. If you're enjoying this story about how prejudice can backfire on those who practice it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to find out what happens when Tyler finally understands who's really in control. Because what he did at that party was just the beginning. And what I was about to do would change everything between us forever. Driving back home, Tyler's words echoed in my mind, You don't belong here. 3 years ago, when our parents died in that terrible accident on the highway, Tyler was crying in my arms, whispering between sobs, "Ryan, I don't know what to do without them. How am I going to pay for Princeton? How am I going to fulfill the dreams they had for me?" I held him that night, promising I'd take care of everything. That he wouldn't have to worry about money. That I'd make whatever sacrifices were necessary to give him the education our parents wanted for him. What I didn't know was that Tyler would interpret my love as obligation, my sacrifice as entitlement. I parked in front of my modest home, a conscious decision to save as much as possible and invest in his future. While Tyler lived in a luxury apartment near campus with 2 bedrooms and a lake view, I kept the same simple place I'd lived in since starting my company. I grabbed my laptop and opened the financial spreadsheets I kept religiously organized. The numbers were brutal, but enlightening. Over the past 3 years, I had transferred exactly $247,000 to Tyler's accounts. $57,000 a year for tuition, plus $15,000 for housing, $8,000 for food, $5,000 for books and supplies, and approximately $1,000 a month for personal expenses. $1,000 a month that Tyler spent on designer clothes, expensive dinners, and gifts to impress his rich friends. I remembered the call I got from him 3 weeks ago. "Ryan, I need an extra $2,000 this month. Sebastian is organizing a trip to the Hamptons, and it would be perfect for networking with the right families." The right families. As if our family wasn't good enough. I opened my business bank account and looked at the balance. Morgan HVAC Solutions, the company I built with my own 2 hands, had closed $2.3 million in contracts this quarter alone. Our biggest client was the Riverside Medical Complex, where we installed and maintained the HVAC systems for 12 buildings, including 3 surgical centers. Tyler had no idea that I was the owner of a company that employed 23 full-time people and 15 seasonal contractors. To him, I was just the air conditioning guy. My phone rang. It was Tyler. "Ryan? Look, maybe I was a little harsh today." His voice carried that intonation of someone offering a minimal concession. "But you have to understand, my friends come from a different world. They're not used to people like you." "People like me," I repeated slowly. "You know what I mean. People who work with their hands. It's just that. I'm trying to build important connections for my future. Sebastian said his dad can get me an internship at his family's bank next summer." I closed my eyes, feeling a mixture of anger and disappointment cutting through me. "And what did you do to deserve that opportunity, Tyler?" "What do you mean?" "I'm doing well in school, obviously. I've got the right connections now. That's how it works at this level, Ryan. You wouldn't understand." I wouldn't understand, I repeated his words like a bitter echo. "Listen, about tomorrow, can you transfer my allowance a little early? We're all going to that new French restaurant, and I don't want to be embarrassed if my card gets declined." The audacity was impressive. Less than 6 hours after kicking me out of his party, he was asking me for money as if nothing had happened. "Tyler, do you think I'm just an air conditioner repairman?" "Well, yes. I mean, that's what you do, right? I'm not judging, it's an honest job. It's just not sophisticated." At that moment, something fundamental broke inside me. It wasn't just the ingratitude or the arrogance. It was the realization that Tyler had become exactly the kind of person our parents despised. Our father was an electrician who worked double shifts for 20 years to save for our education. Our mother was a nurse who worked extra shifts on weekends. They taught us that dignity came from honest work, not titles or connections. Tyler had completely forgotten those lessons. "About your allowance," I said calmly. "I think I need to reconsider a few things." "Reconsider? What does that mean?" "It means that maybe it's time you learned about financial responsibility." There was a pause. "Ryan, you can't be serious. I'm in the middle of the semester. I have commitments. Sebastian is expecting me to contribute to the spring break trip to France." France. While I was working 60 hours a week, Tyler was planning a vacation in France with money I worked hard to earn. Have you ever worked a day in your life, Tyler? Work? I'm studying. That's my job now. You said yourself that education was the priority. And you don't think education includes learning basic values like gratitude and respect? Her voice grew more defensive. What are you talking about? I've always been grateful. I just think you're being overly sensitive about today. It was just a party, Ryan. Just a party. As if 3 years of sacrifice could be erased in one night of humiliation. I hung up without saying goodbye. I sat at my desk, staring at the contracts I needed to review for the coming week. Contracts that represented thousands of dollars, complex technical responsibilities, and the trust of important clients. Tyler saw all of that as inferior to his rich friend's networking games. I grabbed my phone and opened my banking app. The automatic monthly transfer of $4,000 to Tyler's account was scheduled to happen in 5 days. For the first time in 3 years, I hesitated before confirming the transaction. In my desk drawer was a folder containing all the documents related to Tyler's educational expenses. Bank statements, pay stubs, transfer receipts. Meticulous documentation of every penny invested in the future of a brother who saw me as an embarrassment. I opened the folder and began to calculate not only what I had spent, but what I would still spend if I continued to pay for her education. Tyler was in her second year of a 4-year degree. There was $114,000 left in tuition alone, not counting housing, food, and extra necessities. Over $100,000 to finance the lifestyle of someone who treated me like a second-class citizen. As I was doing the math, my phone buzzed with an Instagram notification. Tyler had posted photos from the party, smiling alongside Sebastian and other friends. The caption read, "Surrounded by family who matters #blessed #Princeton Life #real friends." Family that matters. After 3 years of literally paying for everything in his life. That was when I made a decision that would change everything between us. If Tyler wanted to live in a world where people's worth was measured by status and connections, he was about to find out exactly where he stood when that financial support disappeared. Because what he didn't understand was simple: I wasn't just the coach he despised. I was the coach who completely controlled his financial life. And that dynamic was about to change in a way he never could have imagined. 3 days passed without me making Tyler's monthly transfer. 3 days of silence that were broken by a barrage of increasingly indignant messages. "Ryan, the transfer didn't go through. What's going on? Seriously, man, I need that money today. Sebastian is going to think I can't afford the trip. You're being childish. Are you going to let me down because of a misunderstanding?" Misunderstanding. As if 3 years of sacrifice were a misunderstanding. On the 4th morning, my phone rang at 6 in the morning. It was Tyler, and his voice carried a tone of superiority I had never heard before. "Look, Ryan, I talked to Sebastian about our family situation. He gave me some interesting perspective." I closed my eyes, already anticipating what was coming next. Sebastian said it's natural for working-class families to have a hard time understanding higher aspirations. That I shouldn't feel guilty for wanting something better than fixing equipment for the rest of my life. Every word was like a punch in the stomach. So we decided that maybe it would be best if I took a step back from our current dynamic. Sebastian is going to introduce me to some investors who can help with my educational costs. People who really understand potential when they see it. Investors, I repeated slowly. Exactly. Sebastian's father knows people who invest in promising young people. Talents who will build the future, not just keep old systems running. The arrogance in his voice was unbearable. Tyler actually believed he deserved money from rich strangers simply for existing and attending Princeton. And what exactly would you offer these investors in return? My potential, obviously. My future connections. Sebastian said people like me are a sure bet. People like him. As if he were fundamentally different from me, superior in some natural way. "Tyler, do you have any idea how much money I've invested in your potential?" "That's different, Ryan. That's family. It's an obligation." Sebastian's investors choose to support talent because they recognize real value. Obligation. 3 years of my life reduced to an obligation. I hung up without saying goodbye. That afternoon, I got a call from Derek, my best friend since high school and now the manager of a large construction company. "Dude, did you see Tyler's Instagram today?" My stomach sank. "No. Why?" He posted a photo at some expensive restaurant with the caption, "Finally surrounded by people who understand ambition and class. Some people are born to lead, others to serve." And then there's a bunch of hashtags about upgrading your social circle and leaving limitations behind. Derek paused. Ryan, tell me you saw this before I called. I didn't, I muttered, already opening the app. The photo showed Tyler smiling in a restaurant I recognized as one of the most expensive in town, surrounded by Sebastian and other friends. All of them wearing clothes that cost more than my weekly salary. But it wasn't the photo that hit me like a punch in the gut. It was the caption. And the comments. Finally found your real family. Madison Pierce. Welcome to the real world, Tyler. Sebastian Huntington 3. Toxic people just hold us back. Proud of you. Someone named Reginald Ashworth 4. Derek kept talking, but I could barely hear him because of the blood pounding in my ears. And there's more, Ryan. I need to tell you something I heard at the golf club yesterday. My blood ran cold. Derek went to the same club where many of the executives who hired my company met. Sebastian's father was there. Lawrence Huntington. He was telling some of his associates how his son was mentoring a kid from a humble background, and how it was inspiring to see someone trying to escape his family's limitations. Every word was a stab in the heart. Ryan, he specifically mentioned that you were a maintenance technician, and that Tyler was overcoming difficult circumstances at home to build a better future. I was silent, processing the magnitude of the betrayal. Tyler wasn't just disrespecting me in private, he was actively destroying my professional reputation in circles where I needed to maintain credibility. There's more, Derek hesitated. Lawrence said he was considering offering Tyler an internship at his bank as a social responsibility project to help young people from working-class families. Working class. As if it were a disease Tyler needed to be cured of. Derek, did you tell anyone about my company? About the contracts I have? Of course I did. I defended you. I told him Morgan HVAC makes millions, that you have contracts with half the medical center in town. But. Lawrence laughed and said, it's typical of families like that to inflate their modest successes. Small-scale operations always seem bigger from the inside. I hung up the phone feeling a rage I had never experienced before. Tyler wasn't just being ungrateful. He was actively sabotaging my reputation, telling lies about my company, and allowing wealthy strangers to describe me as a failure who was getting in the way of their progress. If you're following this story of family betrayal and want to see how far arrogance can take a person, don't forget to subscribe to find out how this toxic dynamic was about to have devastating consequences. That night, I called my accountant, Patricia, a woman in her 50s who had been managing my company's finances for 5 years. Patricia, I need to know exactly how much net profit my company has generated over the last 3 years. Sure, Ryan. I can put together a detailed report. Anything specific you're looking for? I want to compare what I've earned versus what I've spent on family expenses. 2 hours later, Patricia sent me a report that changed everything. Over the past 3 years, Morgan HVAC had generated $3.2 million in net profit. I had invested $247,000 in Tyler, nearly 8% of all the money my company had generated. 8% of my hard work financing the education of someone who saw me as an obstacle to overcome. But what really broke me was the last part of the report. Patricia had calculated how much I could have grown the company with that $247,000. How many additional employees I could have hired. How much equipment I could have purchased. How many real opportunities one had sacrificed to finance Tyler's contempt for me. I grabbed my phone and opened the banking app. The automatic transfer to Tyler was scheduled to happen in 12 hours. For 3 years, I clicked confirm without hesitation. This time, my finger hovered over cancel. Tyler thought he had found better investors than me. People who really understood value, and could offer more than a mere air conditioning technician. It was time to find out if that was true. I clicked cancel, and then cancel future transfers. The system asked me if I was sure. I clicked yes. Tyler wanted to distance himself from our family dynamic? Perfect. From now on, he would have all the independence he ever wanted. And I would finally find out if 3 years of sacrifice had created a man or just fed a parasite. The answer would come faster than either of us could have imagined. In the 3 days following the cancellation of the transfers, I observed Tyler with the scientific curiosity of someone studying a social experiment in real time. He continued to live as if nothing had changed. Expensive dinners with Sebastian, Instagram posts showing bottles of wine that cost more than most people's weekly paychecks, stories about networking with influential people. Tyler was operating on a line of credit he didn't know had been cut off. On Wednesday morning, I got a call from Marcus Chun, manager of the Riverside Medical Complex, my biggest client. "Ryan, I need to talk to you in person. Something urgent." My stomach dropped. Marcus never asked for urgent meetings unless there were serious problems. An hour later, I was sitting in his office overlooking the hospital complex I had helped design and keep running smoothly for 5 years. "I got an interesting call yesterday," Marcus began, drumming his fingers on the table. "From a Lawrence Huntington, saying he represents some investors interested in modernizing our HVAC systems." My blood ran cold. He specifically mentioned that our current maintenance company is a small family operation that doesn't have the resources to support a complex of our size. Marcus paused, watching me carefully. "Ryan, they offered a 40% discount on the first year to transfer us to their company. Huntington Banking and Investments apparently has a commercial services division." The betrayal ran deeper than I had imagined. Tyler wasn't just destroying my reputation, he was actively stealing my clients. "Marcus," I said calmly, "do you know how much revenue Morgan HVAC generates annually?" "Honestly? I never asked. You guys always deliver exceptional quality on time." I opened my laptop and showed him my company's financial reports. Marcus scanned the numbers, his eyebrows rising progressively. $2.3 million in the last fiscal year, he murmured. "Ryan, this is not a small family operation." "No, it's not. And Huntington Banking knows that perfectly well. The question is, why are they lying?" Marcus leaned back in his chair, processing the information. "What exactly is going on here, Ryan?" I explained the family situation, omitting only the most painful details of personal humiliation. Marcus listened silently, occasionally shaking his head in disbelief. "So your own brother is sabotaging your business to impress people he barely knows?" "In a nutshell, yes. And they think they can just steal our contracts by offering unrealistically low prices?" I nodded. "Marcus, I need you to know that regardless of what happens personally between me and Tyler, Morgan HVAC will honor all existing contracts with the same quality as always." Marcus smiled for the first time since he had arrived. "Ryan, we've worked together for 5 years. You've saved my skin countless times with emergency repairs. Huntington could offer free services and I still wouldn't consider switching companies." I left the meeting with more than confidence about my biggest client. I left with a plan. That afternoon, I called Patricia, my accountant. "Patricia, I need a complete analysis of all our commercial contracts. Which customers are most vulnerable to offers from competitors? What is our room for maneuver in terms of prices? And above all..." I paused, considering the implications of what I was about to ask. "I want to know if we can expand aggressively without compromising quality. Hire more teams, invest in new equipment, maybe open a second location." "Ryan, that would be a significant expansion. You're talking about an investment of $500,000, maybe more." "I have the capital," I replied, thinking of the $247,000 I would save by not paying Tyler, plus the additional profit from contracts I wouldn't lose to sabotage. "But it's risky. Rapid growth can..." "Patricia," I interrupted gently. "Trust me. I know exactly what I'm doing." That night, Derek called with more insight into the situation. "Ryan, man, you need to know what's going on. I was at the Chamber of Commerce networking event today. Lawrence Huntington was there, talking to several business owners about consolidation opportunities in the technical services sector." "Did he mention my company specifically?" "Not by name, but he talked about outdated family operations that are hindering market efficiency." "And Ryan. Tyler was with him." My hand tightened around the phone. Tyler was at the business networking event? Introduced as a junior business development consultant. The kid was handing out business cards like he was a partner in the firm. Business cards. Tyler was literally introducing himself as a representative of a company that was trying to destroy my business. "Derek, I need a favor. Can you find out which companies Huntington Banking is targeting? Which other service providers are they trying to consolidate?" "Sure, but why?" "Because," I said slowly, The pieces finally falling into place in my mind. They're not just trying to steal my clients. They're trying to monopolize the entire commercial technical services market. After hanging up, I spent 2 hours researching Huntington Banking and investments online. What I discovered was revealing. The company had acquired 3 small service businesses in the last 2 years. All had been forced to sell after a price war that left them financially unsustainable. Tyler wasn't just a spoiled kid impressing rich friends. He had become a pawn in a predatory acquisition scheme. And I was the next target. If you're following this story of how blind ambition can turn family into a weapon, subscribe to the channel to find out how an underrated technician was about to teach a business lesson that no Ivy League university could provide. The next morning, I made the decision that would change everything. I called Thompson and Associates, the largest commercial law firm in town. I'd like to schedule a consultation on aggressive business expansion strategies and protection against predatory business practices. The receptionist scheduled it for that afternoon. Next, I called my bank's finance department. I'd like to discuss a line of credit for business expansion in the amount of $1 million. The manager was available in an hour. Lastly, I called James Mitchell, the best private investigator Derek had recommended years ago. James, I need detailed information on Lawrence Huntington III and Huntington Banking. Everything you can find on business practices, previous acquisitions, and any legal vulnerabilities. Understood. Deadline: 48 hours. As I was making these calls, a message from Tyler arrived. Ryan, I don't know what game you're playing, but Sebastian said you've been spreading confusing information about our family to some clients. This has to stop. I'm trying to build a serious career, and you're sabotaging my opportunities. I read the message 3 times, each rereading increasing my determination. Tyler thought he was building a career. In reality, he was being used as a puppet in a scheme to destroy mine. And now that I understood the game they were playing, it was time to show them how to play to win. Tyler wanted to distance himself from our family dynamic? Perfect. From now on, he would find out what it meant to face not his brother, but the CEO of Morgan HVAC Solutions, a company that was about to become much bigger and more powerful than any Huntington had ever imagined possible. The war had officially begun. And unlike Tyler, I wasn't fighting with borrowed money or made-up credibility. I was fighting with 5 years of solid reputation, multimillion-dollar contracts, and an intimate understanding of exactly where Lawrence Huntington was most vulnerable. What none of them knew was that the technical simpleton they so despised had spent the last 5 years building relationships, studying the market, and developing expertise that would make any hostile takeover attempt not only difficult, but potentially disastrous for anyone who tried. Tyler wanted to play with the big boys? He was about to find out he already was. The execution began on a Monday morning at exactly 9:15 a.m., when Tyler tried to pay for a $47 breakfast at Sebastian's favorite restaurant and his card was declined. "Try again," he said to the waiter, forcing a smile as Sebastian and Madison watched with growing curiosity. Second try. Declined. Balance: $23.14. The $4,000 monthly transfer that always arrived on the 15th simply wasn't there. While Tyler was discovering his new financial reality, I was across town signing contracts that would change everything. Thompson and Associates had prepared a rock-solid legal strategy for aggressive expansion. My $1 million line of credit was approved in record time. And James Mitchell, the private investigator, had uncovered something devastating about Lawrence Huntington. "Ryan," James said on the phone, "Huntington Banking has 3 pending labor lawsuits and is under investigation by the Department of Justice for possible bid rigging." It was better than I had hoped for. On Tuesday, Tyler called 8 times in a row. I let them all go to voicemail. "Ryan, damn it, answer the phone. Something's wrong with my account, and I need that transfer today. Sebastian is starting to ask awkward questions." On Thursday, Tyler was desperate enough to ambush me in my company parking lot at 6:30 in the morning. "Ryan," he yelled, jumping out of his BMW. "What the fuck is going on? Why are you ignoring me?" I pulled over next to my work truck and slowly turned to face him. Tyler looked defeated, dark circles under his eyes, wrinkled clothes, his polished arrogance replaced by thinly veiled desperation. "Tyler," I said calmly, "how's life with your new investors?" His face flushed. "This has nothing to do with that. Lawrence said the process takes a few weeks too. I need that money. Princeton is threatening to drop me for non-payment. Interesting. What about your rich friends? Can't Sebastian help? He said he can't lend money to friends. Family principles. Tyler avoided my gaze. Madison suggested I get a part-time job, as if I were some kind of common laborer. I finished. Ryan, I know I was an idiot at my party. I was nervous, trying to impress important people. But you can't punish me like this. I promised to pay for your education, I agreed. I didn't promise to pay for your arrogance. You're destroying my future because of a few thoughtless words. I pulled out my phone and started reading his Instagram posts from the last few days. Finally surrounded by people who understand ambition and class. Some people are born to lead, others to serve. Tyler turned pale. Leaving family limitations behind, I continued reading. Upgrading social circle. Overcoming difficult circumstances at home. Tyler, you didn't just disrespect me. You actively tried to destroy my professional reputation by telling Lawrence Huntington lies about my company. His eyes widened. How did you find out? Do you think I live in a vacuum? That I can build a multimillion-dollar company without contacts and sources of information? Multimillion-dollar. Tyler repeated, confused. I smiled. It was time for the full revelation. Tyler Morgan HVAC brought in $2.3 million this quarter alone. We have contracts with half the commercial complexes in town. Your friend Lawrence is trying to steal customers from a company that is bigger than any business he has ever run. The blood drained completely from Tyler's face. I design HVAC systems for hospital complexes. I manage a team of 23 specialized employees. I negotiate multimillion-dollar contracts with Fortune 500 corporations. Each word was a slap in the face to the arrogance he had built on my supposed inferiority. I pulled a folder from the truck and handed it to him. These are my company's financial statements for the last 3 years. Also included is the $247,000 I spent on your education and lifestyle. Tyler opened the folder with trembling hands, his eyes scanning the numbers that completely shattered his perception of reality. $247,000, he muttered. Dollars. Every penny documented. Including the $1,000 a month you spent impressing your friends with money I sweated to earn. Tears began to stream down Tyler's face. My phone rang. It was Marcus Chun from Riverside Medical. Excuse me, I said to Tyler, answering the call. Ryan, Huntington Banking tried to reach us again yesterday, offering a 60% discount now. When we refused, Lawrence Huntington became aggressive. He threatened legal consequences. He threatened you? My voice was dangerously low. Yes. And Ryan, we checked their background. 3 lawsuits for commercial intimidation in the last 2 years. We want to not only keep our contract, but expand it. Can you take over the air conditioning for the new research building? I can have a proposal on your desk by Friday. Perfect. And Ryan? Lawrence Huntington made a serious mistake threatening our hospital. We're going to make sure the entire medical community in the region knows what kind of company they really are. I hung up and faced Tyler, who had listened to the entire conversation. That was an additional $1.2 million contract I just landed. Directly because of the incompetence of your mentor Lawrence. Tyler was completely broken now, finally understanding the magnitude of what he had lost and what he had tried to destroy. What do I do now? He whispered. Now, I said, opening the door of my truck, you find out what it means to build something from scratch. Without my money, without my help, and without the illusion that you were born superior to others. I got into the truck and rolled down the window. Oh, Tyler? Your friends are going to find out very soon that Lawrence Huntington is under investigation by the FBI. When that happens, you'll probably find out who your real friends are. I drove out of the parking lot, watching Tyler in my rearview mirror, standing alone next to a BMW he could no longer afford, holding a briefcase that documented 3 years of sacrifice he had thrown away for the approval of strangers. But the real twist was yet to come. Because while Tyler was dealing with his new reality, Lawrence Huntington was about to discover that declaring war on the simple air conditioning technician had been the biggest mistake of his career. The The fall would be deeper and more public than either of them could have imagined. 6 months later, I was sitting in my new office, an entire floor of the commercial complex I had air-conditioned myself 3 years earlier. The panoramic view of the city showed cranes and construction sites in every direction. Half of those projects had contracts signed with Morgan HVAC Solutions. The expansion had been meteoric. 42 employees, 3 branches, and contracts that spanned 2 states. The $1 million investment had multiplied into $6 million in revenue in just the first 6 months. My phone rang. It was Derek, with news I had been waiting for weeks. "Ryan, it's over. Lawrence Huntington was indicted today. Tax fraud, extortion, manipulation of public contracts. The FBI found enough evidence to prosecute the entire company." I smiled, remembering the threats Lawrence had made to Riverside Medical. Every word recorded, every email documented, everything handed over to the authorities by Marcus Chen himself. "And Tyler?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. "He came home last week. Princeton expelled him for non-payment. Sebastian and the others disappeared as soon as the investigation came to light. They don't want to be associated with the Huntington family right now." Tyler had tried to call me dozens of times in the last few weeks. I had ignored all his calls until I received a message that simply said, "Ryan, can I come over? I need to talk in person. Please." When I opened the door that Saturday afternoon, I barely recognized my younger brother. The arrogant, polished boy was gone, replaced by a young man with dark circles under his eyes, simple clothes, and messy hair. "I got a job," were his first words, before I even invited him in. "I'm washing dishes at the restaurant downtown. $10 an hour." I nodded, waiting for him to continue. "And I enrolled in the state university for next semester. I'll pay for it myself, even if it takes me 10 years. We sat in my living room, an uncomfortable silence hanging between us. "Ryan, I know I have no right to ask for forgiveness," Tyler began, his voice breaking. "Not after what I did. Not after how I treated you. You called me an embarrassment," I recalled calmly. "You said I didn't fit into your world. I was a complete idiot." Tears streamed down his face. I was so obsessed with impressing people who didn't care about me that I despised the only person who ever cared about me. Tyler looked around my modest home, the same simple furniture he had criticized hundreds of times. "You chose to live like this even though you're a millionaire. You chose to work with your hands even though you could hire others. You chose to help me even when I didn't deserve it. And you chose to be ashamed of me," I replied. "You chose to try to destroy my reputation to impress strangers. Lawrence told me you were limiting my potential. That I deserved better than a working-class family." Tyler shook his head in disbelief. He made me believe I was special, that I deserved better. "Tyler, you've always been special to me. You've always deserved the best. But the best doesn't mean disregarding where you came from." I showed him a folder I had prepared weeks ago. "These are all receipts for the $247,000 I spent on you. I'm not charging you back. It's a parting gift from the person you used to be." Tyler opened the folder, his eyes scanning page after page of transfers, receipts, pay stubs. $247,000, he murmured. "You worked 60 hours a week to pay for me, and I treated you like trash. You treated me like I was inferior. Like my work was less worthy than your friends' aspirations." Tyler closed the folder and looked at me directly. "How do I fix this, Ryan? How do I prove I've changed?" "You don't," I replied. "You live. You work. You build your own life without expecting others to pay for it." 6 months have passed since that conversation. Tyler worked 12 hours a day between the restaurant and a second job at a hardware store. He had lost 33 pounds, developed calluses on his hands, and for the first time in his life, he was paying his own bills. Last week, he called me for the first time since our conversation. "Ryan, I wanted to tell you that I got a promotion to assistant cook. And I enrolled in business at the state university. It'll take me 6 years to graduate working part-time, but I'm going to do it." There was genuine pride in her voice. Not the artificial pride of status he had sought at Princeton, but the real satisfaction of personal achievement. "There's one more thing," Tyler hesitated. I'd like to visit our parents' grave with you next Sunday. To apologize to them too. At the cemetery, we watched Tyler kneel before our parents' headstone, whispering words I couldn't quite hear. When he stood up, there was a serenity on his face I hadn't seen in years. They would have been ashamed of me, he said simply. But maybe they'll be proud of the man I'm trying to become. Today, Tyler is no longer the privileged kid who kicked me out of his party. He is a young man who understands that dignity comes from honest work, that respect is built through actions, not connections. As for me, I learned that sometimes the greatest gift we can give someone we love is to allow them to face the consequences of their choices. Tyler needed to fall in order to learn how to get up on his own. Lawrence Huntington was sentenced to 7 years in prison. His company was dismantled, his assets seized to compensate the victims of his predatory practices. Sebastian and Tyler's other friends disappeared from elite social circles when the scandals came to light. Morgan HVAC Solutions now employs 83 people in 5 states. Not because I wanted to prove anything to Tyler or his former friends, but because I built something solid based on competence, integrity, and hard work. Last month, I offered Tyler a paid internship at the company during his summer break. Not out of pity or family obligation, but because he finally demonstrated that he understands the value of honest work. "You'd really let me work for you?" he asked incredulously. "After everything?" "Tyler," I replied, "if you've learned that there's no such thing as a job you're too good for, only attitudes you're too good for, then yes. But you'll start in maintenance, learning how the systems really work." He smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen on him in years. "I'd love to learn about HVAC, Ryan. I really would." If this story of transformation, forgiveness, and second chances touched your heart, subscribe to the channel for more stories about how life's greatest lessons often come disguised as our most painful experiences. Because in the end, Tyler wasn't the only one who needed to learn a lesson. I learned that true love sometimes means letting the people we love face their storms alone, so they can discover their own strength. And I discovered that being just an air conditioning technician means being someone who keeps the world running, one system at a time. The humiliation Tyler caused me turned into the greatest blessing of my life. It forced me to prove to myself the real value of what I had built. And today, when I look at my brother working honestly, sweaty and tired but genuinely proud of his progress, I know our parents would be smiling down on us both. After all, they always knew that it doesn't matter what you do in life, it's how you do it that counts.